wonderful viewers. Welcome back to Each Right with Ebukosia. Today we'll be touching on the effect of nutrition on the mental health of vulnerable population. And by vulnerable population, I mean children, the aged, and then women. So I have a psychologist with me. I will let him introduce himself.
My name is Nantie. I work in. I'm a clinical psychologist and I'm a private practitioner. And I'm also into aging studies and mental health.
So Nantie, I would want us to touch on the introduction. Give us an introduction to the mental health disparities among the vulnerable populations.
Well, first of all, when we talk about mental health, we are talking about your cognitive well-being or your mental well-being. So basically, health, but this time for the brain or for how you feel, how you think. So a synergy between how you think and then how you feel and how you act. These three components in the triangle. And for the vulnerable populations, children are very ignored in our parts of the world, same as the aged. In fact, these two brackets, young, very old, they are usually ignored and don't really focus on how well they are doing mentally. Sometimes you think children don't have stresses or children don't have things that make them anxious or children don't have things that make them depressed. Same goes for the aged. I mean, once you are above 60 or you are post-retirement, people just ignore you to live your life. Your children will visit. You are there alone, pretty much living alone. And there are certain factors that can affect your mental health, whether you are young or old. I guess that's what we'll explore more during our conversation.
Yes, I would want us to touch on some of the nutrients that can help in mental health well-being.
Well, that's quite broad, but currently we know, I'll speak for the children and I'll speak for the aged. So for children, there's omega-3 fatty acids, there's foods rich in vitamin D, and these are things that help boost people's mental health, and depending on the various components we're looking at. So for example, for someone who is going to depression, we can just tell you, go and expose yourself to the sunlight because of natural vitamin D, right? And the fatty acids too helps combat free radicals in the brain, which helps promote your mental health. Same for the aged. Now, for the aged, they are usually recommended omega-3 fatty acids as well, because that also helps them. Same as that's for young people. And same vein, vitamin D. So these two are the most prevalent ones that we usually see when it comes to nutrients that help in brain function for both young and old.
Okay. I like how you touched on the fact that in our part of the world, we think the children especially, need that dream be alive.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they might be even giving signals that they are anxious.
Yeah.
And it's something that in our part of the world, you will tell that it's like the child is being picky, and they would rather force the parent to make the child not show the signs that are called for help.
Yeah.
So I like how you touched on this. I would want us to touch on the barriers, some of the barriers when it comes to mental health and then these vulnerable groups.
The barriers are a lot. First of all, there's economic barriers, there's educational barriers. So we're going to talk about economics. For some of the people who come for therapy, for example, we have people who are a little well-to-do, so they would come for therapy. Sometimes hear people say that, mental illness or depression is a rich people's sickness or is a white man's sickness. They don't think that a Ghanaian who's already struggling with life has the leverage or has the leeway to be depressed. They think you're too stressed to be depressed. That's what they think. And when it comes to educational, with someone who's not very well informed, the person doesn't understand that my ill mood, like the way I'm feeling down all the time, it's because my mental health is bad. Right? They don't really understand that concept. And so if you have such barriers, it's difficult for you to appreciate your mental health in general and take steps to improve it.
Awesome. I would want us to touch on the brain gut as how food affects our mental health.
Okay. That's a very interesting one because it's not one that we usually talk about often. So the gut, that's usually the abdominal region. So it's most of the neurotransmitters in the brain stem from there. They are produced from there. It produces about 90% of our serotonin levels. Now, serotonin is a feel-good neurotransmitter. So if you do something like engage in an activity that makes you excited, it's usually serotonin that we're talking about. And there are some foods that we take that can help improve the gut health. Now, gut health is equated to good mental health. So depending on how good your gut is, there's a likelihood that your mental health will be equally good. And if your gut health is bad, the tendency that your mental health will be bad is also there. Now, there are so many microbes in the gut,
Yes.
and these can be improved, like eating yogurt, eating leafy, the greens.
Yes.
All these things improve the gut health, which in turn will improve your mental health. Usually when I talk about mental health, because you don't add the food aspect, people don't realize that whatever we consume can also improve it. Now, if there's a problem with your gut, that can lead you to have poor mental health. And when this happens, it becomes a cyclical something where because your gut health is bad, mental health is bad. Because your mental health is bad, then your gut health is bad as well because it's bi-directional.
Okay, I would want us to touch on the effects of diet on someone who is anxious or depressed or like stressed.
First of all, we need to understand that eating in itself will not cure your anxiety or will not heal your depression or your stress, but it goes a long way to play a role. So, for example, sometimes when people are stressed, you realize that they binge eat, or when they are stressed, they go for something like ice cream, something sweet, something sugary.
Yes.
Now, although that has a short-term impact on making you feel good, it has a long-term impact on your health, right? Because sugar is bad for the brain. Too much sugar is bad for the brain. Too much sugar in your body causes diabetes. Too much sugar in your brain causes dementia, right? I mean, there are correlations to that. So, what you eat is also very helpful. So, like I said, if you are eating your greens, your vegetables, once it's improving your gut health, it's improving your mental health. So, we need to make that connection very early on, right? And the things that you eat as well, you should know why you are eating. When people binge eat because of stress or because of anxiety, for people who are depressed, usually they cannot eat. And I need to mention again that usually it's bi-directional. So what you eat can influence your mental health, and your mental health can also influence what you eat.
Yes.
Yeah, so let's take, for example, somebody who is anxious and don't have a show and don't have something, and the person just takes things to eat.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who is depressed, you need to eat to function. Your body needs your mind needs to glucose, the brain needs to glucose. But because you are depressed, you cannot eat. And because you are not eating, you don't have enough strength to do work. So now your entire life is just going down the drain because the eating and the mental health access is poor, right? It's imbalanced. So that's how our food can influence our mental health.
Also, the metabolism process isn't quite the best when you are depressed and then you are eating. You will not get what you are supposed to get. Yes, I want us to touch on the effect of our schedule on our mental health in relation to nutrition. I would use this as an example. Most students, because of the schedule, are not eating well and are mostly either depressed or anxious. I would want us to touch on this.
Yeah. So taking care of your mental health is your responsibility. That's the first thing. Whether you are a student or a worker, life has its own challenges.
Mm-hmm.
Studentship has the challenges that come with it, deadlines, stressful supervisors, all these things. Same for workers. Your bosses could be stressful, the work environment itself could be toxic. But then it's up to you to take some steps to improve your own mental health. You can do this by being more mindful, or by speaking to a therapist if you have to, or by finding adaptive coping strategies. Some people cope by drinking, like clubbing. These are not very adaptive ways of coping.
Mine is running away.
Oh yeah, so that's a very adaptive way of
If
coping.
I see you and I get heart palpitation, I'll not. If it's not really needed for me to see, I'll not see.
Yeah.
I like running. Yeah, it's not the best running. That's my coping.
Yeah. So you need to find more adaptive ways of coping to deal with the situation. So for example, you're a student who is stressed or has a stressful supervisor, you might need to find ways of ways of not making it get to you, depending on what the issues are. Because I don't know what the issues could be, so we can't really go into that. Based on what the issues are, you need to find ways of not making it get to you. Understand that, oh, this is just how student life is. It's just going to last for a period. I need to brace myself for impact, and then I'll be fine. Right. Same for the working situation. If you understand that, well, this work situation is very time consuming, it's very stressful. I need to brace myself up for it, and then develop self-care practices. Whether I'll take breaks, I'll go to the beach occasionally every weekend, somewhere to go and unwind, right? And then back to nutrition, you need to make time to eat. And if you don't make time for your health, a time will come that you'll be forced to make time for your health. So whilst you have that luxury of making time for your health and engaging in self-care practices, you should probably get to do that. So if it's a breakfast you need to have breakfast before you go to class. If you need to step out of the class and just munch on something, you should do that, because mind you, life goes on. So you are the one who needs to take time off and do things that are more helpful and beneficial for you. So once you have that long day, your nutrition will probably not be so much of a bother to when you realize that I need to do this. It's like when you need to take a medication.
Yes.
Right. If you're told to take a medication 3 times a day, let's say you take one at 6, take one at 12, take one at 6 o'clock, right? When it's 12 o'clock, no matter what you're doing, nobody will ask you to take the medication because you need it for your health. You should think of the same thing as food, because food is medication as well.
This is easier said than done, especially with workers and students, because the time that you feel hungry, you might be in a lecture or a class. Some lecturers are okay with you eating, so far as it doesn't disrupt them. Others don't want to see you eat at all. Meanwhile, the timetable has been scheduled in a way that students don't even get adequate time to eat and eat well. And I mean, mastication taking place for the carbohydrate to break down in our mouth. So I'm very happy you are touching on
this. Just to be a little bit more, please some more emphasis on that. So like I said, if it's medication you have to take, you wouldn't care about what the lecturer has to say about your medication.
Yes.
Right? So you don't need to go and eat a whole meal. You can just step out and munch on something. Like I said, you need to find a way to prioritize things for yourself. Else you would make all the excuses and then end up maybe eating the whole day.
Okay, I would want us to touch on some therapeutic diets that, as someone who is depressed or is sensing like depression, most of the mild one, what are some of the therapeutic diets that can be taken?
Okay, so first of all, dieting, I have to be honest here, dieting is not something that so because I'm a psychologist, we work with other health professionals as well. So when it comes to dieting, maybe it depends on why the person is not eating well. If the person is depressed, first of all, the person doesn't even have the volition to eat. The person doesn't want to eat in the first place. You can't force the person to eat.
Yeah.
Right? So the depression has to be handled first before you talk about the dieting. However, there's some form of diets that help. Back to the conversation about the gut brain.
Yes.
Yeah, because poor gut health can affect your hippocampus, can affect your amygdala, right? And the amygdala helps you with handling stress. Yes. The hippocampus helps you with handling stress. The amygdala helps you with your flight fear response, right? So if you eat, let's say, the Mediterranean meals, your greens, the vegetables, all those things, that can help you, but it doesn't.
It's not a cure.
Exactly.
Yes. But something
it helps,
to at least.
It helps, but it doesn't treat your depression exactly. So that's what we need to to realize.
Emphasize.
Yeah, and then also when you are stressed or when you are anxious, it's still good to learn how to eat well and then eat your appropriate portions, like 3 times a day, and healthy as you would, whether
It's a balanced diet.
a balanced
Because
diet.
if you have a balanced diet, you get the nutrients that is needed for brain or cognitive development.
Yes, exactly. So the over reliance on sugary stuff or what's the term we usually use? Comfort foods.
Yes.
When you are stressed, you go to
Yeah.
comfort food. Sometimes too much of the comfort foods become your actual meal, and that's where the
Yes.
problem lies. So focus less on comfort foods and then eat the healthy ones. Make it a conscious effort to eat the healthy foods that you're supposed to eat thrice a day. Then you can have your cheat days. Let's be honest, everybody will have their cheat days, but it shouldn't be around fasting.
Okay. I would want you to let us know, how would I even know that it's time for me to have psychotherapy?
Okay. So for someone to come to see the psychologist, right, the person will usually be feeling some level of distress. So when you are there and you feel like something is off about me, maybe things are just changing with me. I get irritated very often. I have no joy in things that used to bring me joy before. So if you're a football lover, now football doesn't bring any sort of joy. If you still love watching movies do not bring any sort of joy anymore. It's not as if you just cannot even enjoy them, or you'd rather sleep for long hours than necessary.
Or sleepless.
Or sleep less. Yes, so sleeping long or sleeping less. When you realize that several things in your life are changing from what it used to be and it's causing you distress. Mind you, the main thing is it has to cause you distress. Or those around you are saying that I are changing, but it's not in a good way. Then you can go and see a therapist and then talk about it. Oh, this is what's happening with me. I don't feel good about myself. I feel like there's so much going on in my head. When you start feeling things like that, yes, it's probably time to go and speak to someone.
Viewers, I hope you have been listening so far. I want to draw our attention to the fact that we have to take psychotherapy very seriously. In our part of the world, psychotherapy is mostly something that no one wants to have because it's either you have broken heart or maybe you are mad. However, our mental health needs to be treated just as we treat our cars and our phones. It needs maintenance. You don't want to wait to go mad before you go for psychotherapy. Because a lot of the nutrition issues we are having actually is because of a psychological issue. So as we are advocating that you eat right by eating your fruits and vegetables and whole foods, we also encourage that you have psychotherapy so that you know the exact thing that is causing you to either overeat or undereat. So Nante, I would want you to give your final words before we wrap up.
Okay. I think I would say that at every point in time, somebody needs to speak to a psychologist. And if you feel like you are out of it, you're out of sorts, or you're too overwhelmed with life, then you need to speak to someone. Don't be shy. A lot of people come to see clinical psychologists for various reasons. It could be just interpersonal relationships. It could be something more serious. Just so long as talking to somebody can help you let off some steam, you should probably do it. It's not a big deal at all.
So viewers, you heard Nancy right. Eating right and having a good mental health works hand in hand. So in as much as you eat your fruits and vegetables and wholesome meals, you have to take your mental health also seriously. You need to speak to a clinical psychologist or go for psychotherapy so that you get to know what is causing certain issues in your life. Because if you are not eating right, your mental health will be at stake and vice versa. It has been Eat Right with Tebukokusia. Do well to share with your friends and see you in the next episode.